Hi, my name's Andrew Werby. I'm a sculptor, and at the start of the pandemic, when masks were suddenly unavailable, I started looking around for a way to make some of my own. Coincidentally, I also wanted to protect myself from the virus, and I wanted to be able to do something that was easy to make and not too expensive. So I started looking into materials that would be available and possible to use fairly easily. I came to vacuum bags, looking at the research. People were saying a lot of bad things about them, which seems to have discouraged people from doing that. But the things that they said turned out not to be true. These vacuum bags have what's called HEPA filtration, HEPA, and they are designed for taking out a very large percentage of the particles that are normally in dust or whatever. I can compare them to the N99 masks by looking at this filtration efficiency that's quoted on the bag. It's at 99.7%. This means it filters out 99.7% of the microscopic particles down to 3 microns in diameter. So that seemed good to me. People were saying that you couldn't breathe through them because there was too much filtration. That turned out not to be true. I can breathe through my masks just fine, at least until they get saturated with water vapor, but that's another issue. They said that they had fiberglass in them. That was not true because I did a melt test and any fiberglass fibers would have shown when the stuff melted down. It melted down into a blob. There were no fibers sticking out. And they said it was going to be a problem with dust coming out of the mask itself. And that just didn't make any sense because they have to test these things. And if it spat out a bunch of dust of its own, it would never pass the tests that quantify it as a HEPA filter. So figuring that out, I looked around and I went to a few different vacuum stores and got a few different things to play with. The ones I settled on were these Simplicity Type H, essentially plastic paper vacuum bags. And it's a 2-ply system designed in the United States and manufactured in China. There don't seem to be any particular supply chain issues with these things. Maybe there will be after this video comes out, who knows. But so far you can still get them in vacuum stores and on the internet fairly easily. They come in packs of 6 and cost about $12. And each one will make 2 masks. So that seemed economical enough to go forward with. In order to make the masks fit better, I decided to make a wire that went all the way around the mask instead of just at the nose, at the bridge of the nose, where they typically have a little metal. With a wire that goes all the way around the face, you can crimp it down so that it'll conform even if your face isn't the standard size of an ideal N95 customer. So, and I also decided not to use a sewing technique because people just don't like sewing, don't know how to do it, and it's hard to find sewing machines these days. So let's get started. I'll show you how to make the hoop, cover it with the mask, and attach the elastic, which is pretty much all you have to do. So here's the materials I use. There's this elastic, which is, I got at eBay. You can also get it at fabric stores in smaller quantities. This is 3/8, but a 1/4 inch is fine. A tape measure, wire stripper and crimper, and aluminum wire. These butt-splice connectors, which the electricians used to put wire together. Now, you can use insulated wire as long as it's a single connector. This is an 18 gauge aluminum wire. You know, it can be up to 16 gauge, I suppose, or, you know, down to 20, and it'd probably still work. And copper, steel, aluminum, brass, any kind of wire will work, but don't use the multi-strand kind because that will not take a bend as easily. Let's see, we got some dikes, we got the vacuum bags, and we got the glue gun with the loads. I like the long loads just because you don't have to stop and change them so often. So let's get started. You take a bit of this wire, and I wrap it around this block I made, which isn't strictly necessary, but it does save some time. You want to get a nice straight connection here, and cut it where they overlap. If you don't have the same size vacuum bags, you know, just measure the circumference on the inside once you've cut it in half, and it should be fine. So I need to trim off a little bit more. A little too small is okay, but too big isn't so great. And then you take one of these butt-splice connectors, and I use the smaller of these. It says 18 gauge, but they're talking about insulated wire, so I'm using the smaller one since this is not insulated. And you crimp it like that, about 1/4 of the way, 1/3, something like that, and crimp it again. Right, and then test it to make sure you've got a good connection, right? So once you've got your hoop, set that aside. Take one of these, you see it says microfine electrostatic filter. It's got a piece of cardboard here. You can't use that, obviously. So you cut it, giving yourself as much mask material as you can. And each one, like I said, will make 2 masks. And set that aside. This is 2 layers of material. And you can see it. One is sort of tissue-like, and the other one is this sort of blue papery stuff. It's a little stiffer. So the idea is to push this into here. I'm trying to do this so you can see. Fit the corners into the corners there. Lay down a bunch of glue. And fold it over. Try not to burn yourself on this stuff, it can be hot. And just work your way around, folding down this material. There's corner in there. That's it. So once you got it smoothly attached, make a little kink here, and a kink here halfway down the short sides, set it aside. I use about 14, 15 inches of elastic to fit my face. Your face might vary. And to attach it, just put down a little dab here and here. Stick this on here, fold it around. Careful not to twist. Set that there. Get a little on my thumb. Put a little on top. Fold it over. And I like to give it a little squeeze with the dikes and make sure I get a nice flat surface here, since you don't want to have a tunnel for the viruses and stuff to get through. Let's get that. Important when you're using the glue gun is not to drag it across the face of the mask, because it'll make little threads that'll tickle your nose. Right. So now all you need to do is make a little dent here. You don't want to use the side with the splice connector, which I run towards the bottom. You put this here where your nose goes, and we're done. This is a mask. As soon as the glue dries, you don't want to put it on when it's hot, you can put it on your face and feel reasonably protected. Well, almost. Now, it can crimp down around your nose. That's the most important thing. Make sure it's tight against your cheeks. You don't want those bulges where the surgical masks always let the air in. And around underneath your chin. And you're done. For extra elegance, you can put a little dab of glue down here. Some people have told me they look better this way, but not very important. And then it'll give you a more conventional mask appearance. And like I said, so then you don't have that shovel face look, right? And it's that beautiful surgical blue, so appropriate with your surgical gown. So as easy as that, right? And usually I make, a dozen or so at a time. in which case you would cut a bunch of strips, right? Cut your wires, make all your hoops, cut your elastic, and then you just make an assembly line and you go. Takes about, what, half an hour to make a dozen masks. And say, $1.50 worth of materials. So compared to what N95s cost these days, I think it's a pretty good deal. I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks a lot.